briefly go through a few things about KHV, which you may or may not know, and kind of share our experiences and what not to do. Press on there. This is the mandatory notice of disclaimer. We are not veterinarians. Take anything we say with your grains of salt. Apply liberally. Moving along. We're down in this area of Florida, so that kind of gives you some idea of what our temperatures are. Our water temperatures last week were 76, something like that. We live on a little farm and work with birds. I like this picture in particular. They're showing off. Moving on. And from discussions last night, we work with some tortoises. Grandkids were a little younger then, but that's pictures in the computer. So we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. We're going to go through a little kind of limited case history, a la Mission Impossible. Bo Dab and dear wife experienced death of their pond by KHV. You want to figure out how to keep it from happening again in the future. Moving along here, we're going to be quick here. This is a little quickie case history. On day 2, some fish looked off, lethargic, kind of floating on the top of the surface of the pond. Day -1, a 24-inch kahaku floating near the surface, minimal movement. She could swim away when disturbed. Day 0, the kahaku died. Water parameters were normal. Everything was grossly normal. Quick look at the gills microscopically. There was some necrosis, but we didn't know if that was just because she was sick or what. And we talked to the world. Moving along here, please. We started having other fish dying. Based on our consultants' suggestions, we treated the pond with everything, pretty well killing the filter systems. Fish continued dying. Luanne bagged up some fish, the instruction from me by telephone, going out to the shop, using the welder to bag up fish, and send them off to Arkansas. They arrived, we got the call saying that the initial histopath looked like KHV, and the next day Dr. Goodwin confirmed that we did have KHV in the pond. This was 2005. How often is KHV in the country? Well, roughly 10% of the VN samples, excluding the several hundred we've sent in over time, were positive. And of the last 400 PCR tests that they got in Georgia, 24% were positive. Now that's probably a skewed sample, but it's pretty frequent. Those are sent primarily from vets. I'm not going to show you a whole bunch of dead fish slides because that's kind of gory. But if you want to look at some, they're online there. Moving along. This is some photomicrographs of the virus. And when you take photomicrographs, the preparation for electron microscopy pretty well knocks out the outer envelope, so you just kind of see the center part of the virus itself. Moving along here, please. This is a computer representation. It looks pretty much like a sphere, although it's actually 20-sided. You get this protein complex, integument, and all. This is probably more what the structure looks like, and there are little receptors on it. You may be able to get a glimpse of those receptors there. Why is this important? It's because by destroying part of this envelope or these receptors, we can keep the virus from being active. So when you're washing your hands, that sort of thing, and you use a little detergent, you knock that out, the virus is inactivated. Moving on. This is the best picture I could find, believe it or not. And these are sort of the receptors. You have to do all sorts of techniques to actually be able to show this on EM. Moving along. The herpes virus have been reclassified recently. The things we see in humans are up here. These in fish are down here. This is important because if we know what's happened in goldfish, channel catfish, and some of the others, we can pretty well protect what's going to happen with KHV in our koi. Moving along. It's a very old structure. We have a similar immune response in carp and mammals. Indeed, we can predict which fish will be resistant by measuring certain HLA markers. In humans, it suggests that the virus, some of the enzymes would be involved with the nervous system. There are at least 12 strains now of KHV that we're aware of by sequencing. It's essentially worldwide. We're Koi imported. It's recognized approximately in 1998, but present in preserved specimens earlier, primarily absorbed through the skin. We used to say through the gills or the gut, but it looks like it's through the skin. Some strains are obviously less virulent than others. Moving along. Permissive temperatures are important because this is how you keep from having problems. The range of permissive temperatures may be expanding, but right now we'll say 15 to 25 degrees centigrade, 59 to 77. Typical lesions, you wipe out the gills. Lots of other things can wipe out the gills too. These are kind of normal gills, and you can see that the gills just kind of get wiped out. This middle lamina is destroyed, and the fish essentially suffocate. Other things happen too, but they die. The virus has been sequenced. Surprisingly, these same people who sequenced the virus have also put in patents for DNA vaccines. Moving along. All right, so we had a bunch of fish die. Where did it come from? How did it happen? Moving along. This is in Taiwan. This tells me where we are. Moving along. Fish involved were from 4 dealers. One was Mr. Lin. Concrete's cheaper there. Moving along. Virtually all keep moving here. Virtually all the fish from this facility died. So they probably weren't the carriers. This is another facility, just a pretty pond. This is Mr. Wan. I've never seen longfins displayed this way. You'd sit down and have tea, and the fish would look over your shoulder. Moving along here. And we brought some of those home. They were among the first to die. Moving along. Just give you a feel of some of the ponds and facilities. There's another facility. This is Mr. Young's outfit, doing a little culling, moving along. This is something we don't really see in Japan much, or at least I haven't, that they have curtains which they draw over their display tanks. And these are automated. There you see the curtain up. Moving along. Another thing which I had not seen before is that their auto feeders here are supplied by an airline, and there's some kind of blower arrangement, and the feed comes shooting out into feeding rings. You know, and the usual netting over and such. So they have things covered. They'd seine up fish for you, and you try to pick out your fish out of groups like that. Another facility which is important, we later learned, all their fish came from different places around the country and came to this place, which was a holding facility. And they shipped tremendous numbers of fish to Europe. Moving along. Behind them you could have seen some little tanks probably.